Hello, Davida.
Hi, Victor.
Thanks for coming. It's very good to have you in Poland at the IFGC conference. You came all the way from Barbados, and I would really like to get your perspective about what is happening there from a legal point of view. Can you firstly introduce yourself to the viewers and tell them who you are and what you're doing?
Okay. Hey, I'm Davida Maynard-Holligan. I am an attorney, or you call a lawyer, in Barbados, and I am also a member of Family Faith Freedom Barbados and Watch Out My Children Barbados. And these are bodies of concerned Barbadian citizens. Some are Christian, some are not Christian, but just they're together based on the fact that they are concerned about what's going on in Barbados with respect to the unfolding of, or should I say, the introduction of different types of legislation that can affect Barbados socially and culturally in ways we've not known before, and ways that we're not necessarily sure if it will be healthy for the future growth of the country and the nation and the future generations. Our children. So that's who I am.
Oh, great. Thank you. I remember when I came to Barbados, I heard you speaking about a bill.
Yes.
Called the Child Protection Bill.
Yes.
And it looked like it was very concerning. Could you tell us more about what that is and why it is concerning?
Yeah, it is a great, anyone with eyes to see and ears to hear. Reading the bill, and I believe you may need either an explanation from someone legal or to be someone legal to fully understand the impact of the bill. But once you have either of those two opportunities, then you're able to see that the bill should be a matter of concern to Barbados, because it threatens the family to destabilize, deconstruct, deteriorate the family as we know it. Of course, the traditional family, but there are different forms of family. It could be a granny, uncle, but the way that we think of the family is a nurturing adult, male or female, and children, male or female, right? So one, it threatens that, and two, it can be used to criminalize and heavily penalize loving, caring, good parents or guardians of children. The bill is not yet passed. It's gone through a period of review where it's allowed for persons such as myself, because I had the opportunity as a member of FFFB to make a presentation before Parliament on the bill. So it's gone through a period of review, and then it goes back to Parliament to be approved. And I'm hoping that they will hear what persons have recommended and that they will amend the bill. But we have to wait and see. The bill's definitions in the interpretation section are very wide. So I'm just going to give you an example. They have in the bill, for instance, the term emotional abuse. Now, a person who is a perpetrator of emotional abuse, a person who does an action that they consider or have defined as emotional abuse, can, if they have the child, if they're a guardian or parent, they can have that child taken away from them, removed from their care and control. They can be fined based on Section 61 of the bill. It's called cruelty to children, to be found guilty of this type of abuse, and other things in the bill. I'm just using this particular example.
Yeah.
And then you can be fined up to $100,000 Barbados, $100,000. Now that would be like $50,000 US, so you can help you to convert. And you can have up to 10 years imprisonment. Wow. Now hear me, Victor. We must protect our children. It's very important that we actually protect our children from people who would actually do bad things and try to hurt them. But it's also important that we don't have this bill and the definitions and the potential use of this bill so wide that it is used recklessly or misused by persons who have other motives. So our concern is that it's misused to hurt good people, right? And so we want the definitions to be tighter, to be clearer, so that it does not affect good families, good mothers, good fathers, aunties, grannies. You understand? So they say emotional abuse occurs where, this is wrong under the bill, any action is done which would cause emotional harm or psychological harm. Any measure of emotional harm or psychological harm or injury, right? This thing is abuse. That word cannot be given little weight. Abuse is supposed to be something extremely harmful, and it's supposed to be a significant thing, right?
Yeah.
Let us say that I have a son, and they've recently changed the rules in schools, because before we had to, in Barbados, cut our sons here to go to school. Now those rules are changed. Let's say that he wanted to wear his hair long for any reason. And as a mom, I say, son, I know this is what the new trend is, but as my son, I do not wish for you to look like this. When you become older, if you want to wear your hair out, fine. But at this time, I want to make sure that your physical wear is tidy, nice, masculine, based on our cultural norms in Barbados, as we have had them for generations. So let's say that I'm a mom who's holding to that, and I say, let's. I don't want you with no bongonati dreads. I have nothing against bongonati dreads, but for my son, I might not want him to wear this at this time. For instance, as a few short years ago, the police force outlawed Rastafarian hairstyle. So it may be that I am trying to shelter my son for a period until he's at an age where he can decide for himself and he's sufficiently empowered in his understanding of himself and so forth that he can wear different hairstyles. But for right now, let's just keep it modest and simple, and we walk through this thing. And my son decides, this is a fad, I want it, mommy. I don't care what you're saying. I want to do what I want to do. Can it not be argued that by me taking a stand with my son and insisting I take him to the barber even though he does not want that I cause my son such emotional upheaval that could be considered emotional harm or psychological injury, because he's going to be affected by this thing. His mom has taken a stand with him, and his mother has insisted and ensured that he was obedient. She's exercised care and control, as we have known it historically for parents. But can that son not now say, no, mommy, you're not supposed to exercise this control with me anymore. My rights are increased, your rights are decreased. No, not so much parental rights no more. You have caused me emotional harm and psychological pain and injury. Can that not be argued, you know? And what you see in the bill is a lot of these holes.
Do you think they are intentionally placed in the law, these loopholes? I
believe that our drafters for decades have been able to put tight definitions in our legislation, and they have been able to put in provisions that help to inform our interpretation of definitions. So for instance, I have that, but then I had another provision saying, well, this provision shall not be interpreted to mean X or Y or Z.
Okay.
Then it helps to give scope or limit the scope of how I can interpret that definition. And that would then ensure that we have proper understanding of what the rights of the parent are. The bill does not give any, the bill has a very scanty provision on parental rights and responsibilities. Of course, we could say, let's go back to case law. But as I pointed out, a lot of the case law which we rely on, which comes from other jurisdictions that we respect, for instance, these things are changing the way that they interpret these things, the way they interpret parental rights, the way they interpret what is in the best interest of the child. All of this is changing. There's a case out of Australia. I mean, there are plenty cases in plenty places.
Yeah.
But this is an example. There's a case in Australia, I think it's called WM, against the Western Australia District Department or something like that. But in this case, they interpreted the best interest of the child to mean that a parent who disagrees with their child transitioning sexually is guilty of emotional abuse. They have branded that parent because they stand on their belief, a child abuser. They have criminalized that parent. They removed the child from the parent's care. They destroy that family.
Wow, that's, I mean, we definitely see the concerns and the dangers, but for example, because we see that so many people are simply either unaware or ignorant, right? So what would you say that as a lawyer, you as a lawyer, what are some of the things or the aspects or the elements that a simple person should be paying attention to when a bill is being announced, for example? Like, I remember you said that it would be ideal to have a lawyer to interpret to you what the bill is saying, right? Because of the language.
Ideal,
but let's say the common person who would maybe not even consider that option, unfortunately, what would be some of the, let's say, key elements or things that they could pay attention to in the way a bill or a law is formulated so that it would raise some bells in their minds, you know?
Ooh, that's a real good question. What a regular person has to do is stay on top of what is going on in their country.
Right.
And keep an ear on international affairs. Know what's happening in Europe. Know what's happening in the US. Know what's happening in England with respect to these things that concern you. And then have your ear on the ground. When there's something going on, you're going to hear a shout about it. It may just be one shout because of the numbers and they can't shout very hard or for very long, but you're going to hear a shout about it. Pay attention to that shout. In my case, there was a rally against the child protection bill. I was not a part of that. But that rally, I just saw a newspaper clip, one newspaper clip. Okay. And I said, the child protection bill kind of rally? I was going about my normal business, living my normal life in my little bubble. And I just saw that and I said, let me look further. Because I had my antenna up and I knew what was going on in the UK and in the US and in some parts of Europe. So it made me say, let me just look a little deeper and see what this might be about. I just said, I didn't know at that time. I just said, let me look a little deeper. That is all it was. One article, one shout.
Wow.
And I looked a little deeper and I was able to use the knowledge I had of what was going on elsewhere and see then, oh my gosh, this bill ready to bring all sorts of folly to Barbados. But at the basis of it, it was because I was paying attention, at least some attention. I know we're all busy, we have so much responsibility, you know, but some attention to what's going on in these areas that I'm concerned about, and keeping an eye, a general eye on the landscape of Barbados, so that something will catch my attention. We spend a lot of time looking at entertainment, this and that. Let's not close our eyes to what's going on politically, because what's going on politically affects us socially, affects our day-to-day lives. So it matters to us.
Wow, that's really important, because usually people are so slumbering, and they, you can just easily say politics is not for me, or I'm not interested in those issues, but then it just hits you to your face because you're thinking it's never going to come to my country.
That's correct.
In my country, it has never been like this. In my family, it has never been like this. It never happened to me, I think that's very important. One last thing that I want to ask you is, because you've been speaking about Barbados and how this bill is being introduced, and do you think there's a specific target in the Caribbean area, or do you have an overview picture of about what is going on in the other islands in the Caribbean, or if there's any, I don't know, maybe a country that is leading in how the political direction is going on?
What I would say is that this is everywhere, but I do believe Barbados is one of the leading countries
in that area,
in this area. And it's for two reasons. It's because Barbadians over the last few decades, let's say 40 years, maybe 40, 30 years, 80s, 90s onward. We are compassionate, loving people, and sometimes that can be abused, and I mean it now in the real sense of the word, abused. But beyond that, at the moment, our government, it's a government where there's no opposition. So it's never before happened in the history of Barbados. So the government won all of the seats at the last election, and there's no opposition in the House of Assembly. So what does that mean? Normally when bills and different types of policy and changes to the legislative framework of a country are being introduced, they have to go for debate. The person's on one side, the person's on the other side. It gets debated. You have to get some of the votes from the people on the other side. And then there's the hope then that if they can agree to pass it, it means it's generally for the betterment of that country. There's only one side. There's nobody else.
Wow.
So there's hardly any debate there's debate. They talk about it. Whether that is debate, I would question. They talk about it. Are we hearing a genuine, sincere review of these legislative proposals that may be thinking not partisan? Are we hearing that from within Parliament? And a lot of these things are going through very quickly, even without the citizenry knowing what's going on. We are hearing about them after, or when the Senate is about to meet to pass it and stuff. You hear very late. So we've had to be very vigilant. We're trying to be very, very vigilant so we can catch things. But a lot of changes are happening.
Oh, that was really inspiring, I would say, and I think it's very valuable information and helpful for, as I said, a simple person to understand a little bit how things work and to question whether they are in the right place in their little sphere of influence or not. I'm looking forward to have more conversations with you, and I hope you will enjoy this event.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Victor. Thank you so much.
Thank you.